What if one of black metal's most iconic songs was not recorded in a Norwegian studio in 1996, but here in a bedroom studio in 2025? Stick around because I'm going to use only home studio tools to see if it can be done. Mother North is one of the most legendary songs in black metal, found on the album Nemesis Divina. This song essentially guaranteed Satyricon's spot on top of the black metal mountain. However, that statement is with nearly 30 years of hindsight. You see, at the time of this album, it was a lot more ambitious, and was somewhat of a departure of what Satyricon had been doing on their previous albums. Nemesis Divina was really different, and the metal world is quite conservative. It couldn't resonate with everyone, but overall it had a shockingly strong impact, and that became very evident when we went on our very first tour ever in the spring of '96. There was such a massive response from our fans, and it became clear that this music means a lot to a lot of people. Now, Frost and Satyr have spoken about this recording in this album many times in publications and in interviews, and one interesting story is that Frost and Satyr still weren't really on the same page about how Mother North should sound. As it turns out, Mother North could have sounded drastically different. I didn't know what the fuck he was doing. It was insanely fast. I looked at Nocturnal Culto and said, what is he doing? It was totally killing the atmosphere of the song. Essentially, Frost believed that the song needed more teeth and intensity, and for him, that was speed. However, after re-recording and hearing the final result, Frost eventually agreed with Satyr and realized that he was right all along. And as such, we have the Mother North that we know and love for the last 30 years. Now, before we move on to the recreation, there's one point that we have to touch on. You know what I'm gonna say. Say it with me. Yes, the uncensored video for Mother North. Now, even though it's the mid-90s and music videos were not really a new thing anymore, black metal bands really weren't doing it yet. And it didn't help that the only band that were putting out music videos at the time was Immortal. And of course, we look back fondly on those Immortal music videos as just examples of unique, lighthearted, youthful energy. Let's just put it like that. In contrast, however, Satyricon wanted a serious music video. Satyr and I were highly fascinated by the idea of making a proper music video and to create a visual expression that would work well with the music. It was paramount that the video should have very striking images and be done as properly as the album itself. Mother North, with its directness, catchiness, and epic qualities, was really the obvious choice of song. And as we all know, in the end, Satyricon made good on their goal of making a proper music video. It was of professional quality at the time, atmospheric, and definitely with striking visuals. And I might add, these days, if you can find an original OG VHS copy of that music video, that's hell of a collector's item. Now, how are we going to try recreating this? For me, that always starts with the drums. I want to get a good foundational drum sound before moving anywhere else, because everything is going to stack onto that drum sound. So in my opinion, it's very vital to start with the drums. Frost uses Tama shells and Zildjian cymbals. It just so happens Metal Machinery here, SDX, has the Babinga exact shells that he uses, including even this hi-hat here, which I'm sure I'm going to butcher the name. It's Abdis, whatever, you'll let me know in the comments. But he uses this exact hi-hat plus a collection of Zildjian cymbals, so very good candidate to create the drum sound for. One thing about the Mother North song or the album in general is that the drums have a pretty open, cavernous type of sound. You're going to get that with overheads and rooms. So if we look in the processing that I did here, the overheads and the rooms are quite loud in the mix, and it's going to contribute to that expansive sound. The other thing that's going to contribute to is the drums are going to sound a bit more boxy and more natural than you might be used to hearing, especially in the modern day context. But it gives a good, nice, natural drum sound. So the drums on their own sound like this. And later on in the song, some of the slower parts. So you can really hear how big and expansive this sounds, but still raw, controlled, but sounds really cool. I've made this preset available on my website. It's called the Divina Kit. You can go grab it right now. It's on the website, available for you. Remember, you just need Superior Drummer 3 and the Metal Machinery SDX. Load it up, one click, start writing some cool riffs. So that's the drums. For bass, we have real bass on this Dominic track, real bass for us, and I'm using just this classic Ampeg amp head. You know, it's 1995, 96, I guess, when they're working on this. This classic Ampeg amp head probably was available, maybe would have been something that they used. And I don't really think the tone on the album is that distorted anyway. So we have a pretty clean, clear, good old-fashioned bass tone here that sounds like this. It's just laying down the foundation along with the drums. Nothing crazy is happening here. If we just take off some of the EQ, I'll leave the limiter on just for loudness. So a real bass is a bit more farty and fatty in the low mids, which you have to dig out aggressively, which we have done right here. So I'll A/B this on off. And the reason why we take all this out again is we don't want it to clash with the snare and the back half of the kick drum. When you're using natural drums, the bass is going to eat up a lot of the headroom and your drums will disappear. So you really need to be pretty aggressive with the EQ there. Compression on bass guitar is like it always is, pretty fast attack, pretty slow release. Just wanting to clamp on the performance of the bass, make it as even as possible. Pretty self-explanatory there. Now with multiband compressor, I did something interesting here. I am compressing at various frequency sections here, as you can see, but I'm also increasing and decreasing different frequency elements. So I can compress, but also shape at the same time. Really cool thing about multiband compression. So this last little bit of multiband compression is getting rid of just a slightly bit more boxiness that was still in the bass tone. And then it goes into the limiter, which I think is self-explanatory. So that is the bass tone, and when you put it together with the drums, you get this. So you can hear the bass, it's filling in the gaps, but the main thing is you can feel the bass. I'm a big fan of bass. I think bass is a very important instrument in black metal, even though everyone fucking ignores it. Now, when we come to the guitars, in an interview, Satyricon said it was a PB combo of some description. PB is all I needed to hear. I knew exactly what I needed to do. For a speaker combination, I decided on the 75, which I'm assuming this is a T75 of some description. Very popular speaker at the time. So we have a PB going into a T75. This is not a preset that I made. You can just copy these settings. So it's an MD or Dynamic 421. These are the position settings that you can just pause the video and save and then, you know, do whatever. Here are the settings for the amp. Pause the video, set it all up. For the overdrive, I have it engaged, neutral settings, and then actually have a little bit of reverb on this tone. So reverb here are the settings. You can pause the video. The reverb is acting as a little bit of extra atmosphere, but it's also kind of thickening up the guitar tone a little bit. There's no extra EQ inside of the plugin at all. Let's turn off the EQ here, and then this is the tone that I created. And the guitar tone by itself would sound like this. And the two moves of EQ are doing very little work. Here it is without EQ. I'll engage when it plays. So very, very minimal work. No multiband compression or anything else happening. Again, this is the tone. It was, you know, pretty simple in my opinion to create. I have been getting questions, by the way. If you guys are curious how I make these tones so consistently, how I can do this over and over again, I've got a training on my website called Metal Guitar Tone Workshop, which is exactly the process that I use. You can go on the site, pick it up, extremely affordable. It's $40. You can go learn how to make these tones whenever you want, or just copy these settings, and then you'll have a really nice Satyricon inspired Mother North guitar tone. So moving on to vocals, I knew there was something I wanted to show you guys. There are a bunch of third-party plugins that help to even out a vocal performance. Obviously, if you were recording with a compressor on the way in, this would be even easier. But in the case where you're just recording with a microphone through your interface and you get a very dynamic wave file, right? I'm talking big peaks and valleys. The old school digital way to fix this was exactly what you're looking at. You go in and you pretty much automate the performance to even it out as much as possible. So all these white lines that you see here are me using a function in Cubase where I can edit the volume of the clip itself with the volume automation, so I can even out the wave file a little bit more. And then on the back side, the compressor does not have to work as hard. Now, in terms of processing here, it's all basic bitch stuff, nothing crazy at all. The first round of EQ is just basic shaping. We're doing filtering, removing some of the low-end information so it doesn't get exacerbated by the compressor. Starting to shape the upper end a little bit here, and you can see here I'm starting to take care of the sibilance. For some reason or another, this vocal performance was pretty sibilant and harsh. So I'm just doing some EQ moves there.
Mother North! How can you sleep when your bed's a body?
Obviously, it sounds a bit muffled. It's a little bit MIDI and boxy, so second stage of EQ, Studio EQ here. Again, guys, these are just stock plugins just showing you guys, when you know what to listen for and when you can make the right decisions. Stock plugins are perfectly viable. So taking out some mid-range boxiness here, really starting to crank up on the high end.
Mother North! How can you sleep when your bed's a body?
But you can see how we're making the vocal much more clear, getting rid of that boxiness. Now, de-esser, extremely important. This is going to clamp down on all those heavy sibilant sounds and harshness. The basic rule of thumb here is do as much as you can without giving the singer a lisp.
Mother North! How can you sleep when your bed's a body?
This is doing a lot of work, but that's what's necessary here. Now I'm doing the de-esser before I go into the compressor here because I don't want to just bring all those problems up in the compression. So here's the compressor, pretty fast attack, medium fast release, slow release, whatever you want to call that. And again, look how much less work the compressor has to do, but our result is just as good.
Mother North! How can you sleep when your bed's a body?
There you go. So all that extra volume automation that I did in the beginning, when we finally get to the compressor, it's even more even and just it's easier to use, right? You don't need to stack compressors. We have a second round of de-esser, obviously, because the compressor still is bringing up some of those elements. This one is a little bit less aggressive. We're just trying to catch the remnants of the harshness.
Mother North! How can you sleep when you're bed?
We're just kind of rounding it off there. Sounds pretty good. Limiter, self-explanatory. I want to go through the mono delay and I want to go through the reverb here. Why mono delay? So this is a one take vocal just down the center. I could change this to a stereo track and do stereo delay and then put everything to the sides. Or I can let the guitars and the synths be on the sides and let them add and contribute to width and just have the vocals down the middle, which is the decision that I decided to make. So I'm using a mono delay with a 1/4 triplet delay feel. Sounds like this.
Mother North, how can you sleep when you're bed?
So it's quite subtle. It's loud because we're solo, but it's subtle in the mix and it adds just a little bit of extra expansion, albeit mono, but it also thickens up and fattens the vocal a little bit. And then this goes into RoomWorks SE, the same super simple reverb plugin I've been using the last couple of videos.
Mother North, how can you sleep when your bed's a budding?
Sounds like that if we put everything in with the bass, guitar, drums.
Mother North, how can you sleep when your bed's a budding?
Excellent. So pretty good results so far, but we are obviously missing the most crucial element of this song. And of course, I'm talking about the synths. Now, I did quite a bit of research to try to find the exact keyboard that was used on this album. I really didn't get a definitive answer, but given that Gator Bartlett worked on this and then subsequently did other albums with a Korg X5, I'm just going to go and say this is probably a Korg X5. And actually, if you know anything about this or you can definitively answer or point me in the direction of which actual keyboard was used on this album, leave a comment. That would be cool to know. And as far as I'm aware, there is no direct VST of a Korg X5. So what I've done here is I have the Triton VST, obviously by Korg, and my idea was it's Korg, it's in the same family of synthesizers and sounds, probably could get something pretty close. They're obviously not the same sounds, guys, okay? So don't leave me a comment saying it's not the same. They're not the same, but they have the same vibe. They're both from the 90s. So the first thing that I needed to do was I wanted to find a combi that was a bit more textural and complex rather than just a simple string patch, and this is what I found. That sounds really nice with the little played lines there, but I really wanted to make sure that the big chords in the back half of the song came through. They sound like this. So I was looking for that big sound, and then obviously I've added some more reverb here on the synth group track that I'll show you. But that's it, just this one string patch here. And I don't know what I did for EQ, just a little bit of filtering here. I bumped up around 1.5 looks like. And that's it for the strings. For the choir, it's the same thing. I was trying to find a choir that had the male, like not a female synthy choir, but more of a male choir. This is the sound that I've decided on. And in context of everything else, it ends up sounding pretty cool as far as EQ and stuff on here. Once again, kind of boosting the 1K area to try to make it cut through a little bit and getting rid of a little bit of mids. Now, when it came to the strings and the choirs, I wasn't that worried. I was way more concerned about making sure that I found a tubular bell sound that did the recreation justice, because that tubular bell sound is an iconic part of that song. So this is the tubular bell sound that I settled on. It's got some weight and body to it. It's not just one of those little synthy ting type of tubular bells. This one sounded like it had a nice big fat wooden mallet just getting beat, and had some thickness and weight to it. And it comes through quite nicely in the full context of the mix. And like I said, the only thing on the synths group is a little bit of extra reverb, the same reverb plugin I've been using this whole time. And then finally we have the master bus. I did one unique thing here. I'm using Magneto to kind of push the mid-range of the mix a little bit more. You can see these filters here. I can saturate between these two ranges and then adjusting the high frequency of the entire mix. I wanted to make the mid-range a bit more exciting. So if we check that out, I'll press play and I will disable the plugin and enable it while it's playing. So not only am I hyping up the mid-range there's actually, it gives it the point of view that the mix is even louder without actually having to limit or do any limiting like that at all. Now for limiting, I should say, I'm using Ozone 11 as always here. I have the same two basic EQ moves that I'm also doing. I didn't do a high shelf this time, didn't felt the mix needed that, and I am going into the maximizer. That is the extent of the mastering chain for this recreation. Once again, just want to make it clear that this is Restream. This is not a mixing plugin. This is a plugin that pipes my audio from Cubase into OBS so that I can record this for you. So now that you have seen exactly how I put this together, let's have a listen to my version of Mother North by Satyricon. for me, Mother North is more than just a song. I would consider it one of black metal's most defining moments on a really awesome album, and honestly, this song still stands up almost 30 years later. So if you enjoyed watching me take this 90s classic and do a modern recreation of it, check out my recreation of Emperor's Ensorcelled by Chaos. You can watch that right here.